The incident I'm about to share happened in the spring of 2017, and even now, years later, I can't step into a Dollar Tree without feeling my stomach tighten. I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter, and living with my aunt, Eudora, a woman who had taken me in when no one else did. My own mother had passed when I was barely a teenager, and my father had never been in the picture. Eudora, though technically my dad's sister, became the closest thing I had to a real parent. She was stern, practical, and fiercely protective. That afternoon, she wasn't feeling well. Her skin was pale, and a low-grade fever had been pestering her since morning. Normally, she wouldn't let me lift a finger. Ever since I began showing, she'd fuss over me like I was made of glass. But with her under the weather and my cravings gnawing at my sanity, I insisted on going to the store myself. "It's just the Dollar Tree, Annie. 3 blocks. I'll be in and out," I reassured her, brushing her damp forehead. Eudora lay sprawled across the floral print quilt on her bed, her eyes half-lidded and voice raspy. "Be careful, Zafira. Lock the car. Don't talk to strangers." She gave me a weak smile. I smiled back, kissed her cheek, and grabbed the keys to her weathered Prius. The late afternoon sun cast a honey-colored glow over the neighborhood as I pulled out of the driveway. The air was warm, thick with the smell of budding flowers and distant barbecue. It should have been a beautiful day. It should have stayed that way. I parked in the half-empty lot and waddled into the store, dragging a cart from the pile near the entrance. The place was quiet, just a few customers meandering through the aisles, a teenage cashier chewing gum behind the register, and static-laced music humming from the overhead speakers. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just some juice, maybe chips, something sweet. I drifted past the toy aisle, the cleaning supplies, the home goods. When I reached the snacks section, I spotted a bag of sour cream and cheddar chips perched way too high on the top shelf. I stretched up, groaning, but my belly shifted my balance awkwardly. I grunted in frustration. "Let me help you with that, dear," said a voice behind me. I turned and found an elderly woman standing there, a small, thin thing with a soft-colored shawl wrapped around her shoulders and silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Her eyes were a startling shade of pale green, almost translucent, and they didn't blink as she smiled at me. "Oh, thanks," I said, stepping aside. She reached up with ease, plucked the chips from the top shelf, and handed them to me. "Craving some?" she said, her voice gentle but oddly firm. "Yeah," I laughed awkwardly. "Sour cream and cheddar. I've been dreaming of them for days." She reached out and brushed my cheek, which made me flinch, just slightly. "Where's your husband, dear?" I hesitated. I don't have one." "Oh," she said, blinking slowly. "Well, what about the baby's father?" "He's not in the picture," I replied, trying to edge the cart forward. She stepped in line with me. "So you're here alone?" "Not usually. I live with my aunt." I pushed the cart forward again, hoping she would get the hint. "She's sick today. That's why I came myself." "I see." Her expression fell into something that resembled concern, but her eyes scanned the aisle, flicking between shelves and shadows like she was searching for something. I gave a tight smile and turned the corner into the next aisle. To my discomfort, she followed. As I pushed my cart down the next aisle, pretending to be absorbed in browsing, I could hear the faint squeak of her shoes trailing behind me. I tried not to look back. Maybe she was just being friendly, or lonely, or bored. But something about her presence, too quiet, too watchful, set my nerves on edge. "So, how long have you been living with your aunt?" she asked, her voice soft but persistent. I forced a polite smile. "Couple of months. And your parents?" "Passed away," I answered quickly, hoping the finality of it would end the interrogation. Instead, her brows knit together in an expression that felt more like calculation than sympathy. "That's a shame. A young girl like you, carrying a child all alone." I didn't answer. I turned into the beverage aisle and grabbed a pack of juice boxes, trying to keep my hands busy. She followed close behind, her eyes never leaving me. "You know," she continued, "back in my day, neighbors looked out for one another. They didn't let young girls wander about in such a delicate condition." I gritted my teeth and tried to respond calmly. "My aunt does take care of me. She's just sick today." She clucked her tongue. "Still, letting you out alone doesn't seem very responsible." I turned to face her then, feeling my patience begin to fray. "Look, ma'am, I'm fine. I appreciate your concern, but I really just want to finish shopping." Her expression didn't change. She just stared at me, her pale green eyes flicking from my face to my belly and back. "If I were your aunt, I'd treat you like a queen. Make sure you had everything you needed. Day and night." I didn't know what to say to that. I gave a tight nod and began walking faster, hoping that if I ignored her, she'd lose interest. But she didn't. Each aisle I turned into, she followed. Each item I picked up, she commented on. It was as if I'd grown a second, unwanted shadow. That one's full of sugar, she said, eyeing the chocolate bars in my hand. Not good for the baby. I bit my lip. I'm allowed a treat now and then. She smiled again, too wide this time. Of course you are. Your cravings are important. They mean the baby's hungry. And babies should be listened to. I turned sharply down the cleaning aisle, hoping maybe she'd lose track of me. But the moment I stopped to grab some detergent, she was right there again. You know, she said, her voice dropping just a notch. I have a place. Out by the edge of town. Quiet. Peaceful. Big garden. You and your baby would be safe there. I stared at her. Excuse me? She smiled again, that same unnerving smile, as if she were offering me a cup of tea rather than a complete upheaval of my life. I could take care of you. Keep you fed. Keep you warm. You wouldn't have to worry about anything ever again. I let out a nervous laugh. That's very kind of you, but no, thank you. I have a home. She leaned in slightly, her voice still gentle, but with an edge. Do you? Because it sure doesn't seem like it. That did it. I turned to leave. I need to go now. But before I could push the cart, she grabbed the metal frame with her bony fingers. Her grip was stronger than I expected. I looked at her, startled. Let's just drive to your place first, she said, her voice almost cheerful. You can pack your things, and then I'll take you to mine. I yanked the cart away from her, my heart pounding. I am not going anywhere with you. Leave me alone. Her smile faltered. For a moment, her face went blank. Then she looked down, and when she looked back up at me, her expression had changed. No more false sweetness. Just something cold. Empty. Like a mask had dropped. But what if something happens to you, she said, her voice now a whisper. Your aunt isn't with you. Life is unpredictable. I stared at her. What the hell are you talking about? She tilted her head slowly. It's dangerous. For people like you. So easy to get lost. You're insane, I said, backing away. Stay away from me, or I'll call the police. She didn't follow me this time. I turned the cart around and walked as fast as I could toward the registers, my hands trembling. I glanced back once. She was still standing there, in the middle of the aisle, staring at me with that same eerie calm. And then, just like that, she was gone. I didn't stop until I reached the front of the store. My hands trembled as I placed the items onto the conveyor belt. The teenage cashier, still chewing gum and thumbing at her phone, barely looked up. I scanned the store again. No sign of the old woman. Maybe she left. Maybe she realized she'd scared me and took off. Or maybe she was hiding in one of the aisles, watching me from behind a shelf. I didn't know. The cashier bagged my things with the enthusiasm of a sloth on a hot day. Have a good one, she muttered. Thanks, I mumbled, grabbing my bag and stepping outside. The parking lot was nearly empty. The sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The breeze had turned cooler. I spotted a young employee, barely older than the cashier, standing near the entrance, smoking a cigarette. Need help with that? He asked, nodding toward my bag. Yes, please, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He followed me to the car and helped load the bag into the back seat. Take care, ma'am, he said with a courteous nod before heading back inside. I stood there for a moment, alone, staring at the store's glass doors. Still no sign of her. I just need to go home, I told myself. Get inside, lock the door, and forget about this freakish woman. But just as I was about to get into the car, a familiar pressure hit low in my abdomen. The urgency to pee struck hard and fast. It was one of those things that came with being pregnant. When you had to go, you had to go. I groaned. There was no way I could drive with a full bladder. And going back inside the store? Not a chance. Then I remembered the small public restroom tucked into the far corner of the parking lot. I'd seen it before, a squat concrete building with 3 stalls and flickering lights. Not ideal, but better than nothing. I locked the car and made my way over, glancing around every few steps. The parking lot was empty except for my car and one other, parked near the dumpster. The restroom door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach and something sour. The overhead light buzzed above, casting a dim, yellow hue. Just get in and get out, I whispered to myself. I chose the first stall, locked the door, and sat down. The silence was thick. A faint dripping sound came from one of the sinks. I tried to focus on the task at hand. Then the door creaked open. Slow footsteps echoed against the grimy tile floor. I froze. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Someone else had to pee. Big deal. But the steps were slow, too slow, and deliberate, like each one was placed with care. They didn't continue past my stall. They stopped. Right outside. I held my breath, staring up at the partition, heart pounding. Nothing happened for several seconds. Then I heard it. Breathing. Heavy, raspy breathing, coming from above me. I tilted my head up, terrified of what I might see. My gaze followed the sound, slowly rising to the top of the stall's partition. There she was. The same old woman. She was standing on the toilet seat of the next stall, her pale eyes peering over the top at me, unblinking, her face expressionless. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My entire body locked in place. "You need to come with me," she whispered. "I'll take good care of you and your baby." My voice returned in a shaky, desperate gasp. "Please just leave me alone. Do you want money? I have some." She cut me off, her voice sharper this time. "Keep your filthy money. I want your baby." Then, with both hands, she reached over the stall wall, trying to grab me. That broke the spell. I screamed and shot up, fumbling with the lock on the stall door. It jammed for a second, an eternity, before it finally clicked open. I burst out, nearly slipping on the grimy floor. Behind me, I heard the woman drop down from her perch with a thud. "Come here. I want your baby," she shrieked, her voice echoing off the tiled walls. "I would take good care of you too. Come to me." I didn't dare look back. I bolted out of the restroom like a shot, my shoes slapping against the concrete as I sprinted across the parking lot. The sky had darkened to a smoky lavender, and the last rays of sunlight were slipping behind the rooftops. My lungs ached, my heart thundered, and my belly felt like it was pulling me down with every step. But I didn't stop. Behind me, I could hear her, laughing. Not just any laugh, the kind that stuck to your bones. High-pitched, warbling, and completely unhinged. "I want your baby," she shrieked again, her voice rising and cracking with desperation. "Come back. Don't run. You'll be safe with me." I reached the car, breathless and shaking, fumbling with the keys. My fingers wouldn't cooperate. I dropped them once, twice, before finally shoving the right one into the lock. As I yanked the door open, I caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror. She was running, not limping, not stumbling, sprinting, faster than someone her age should have been able to move. Her shawl flapped behind her like wings. Her eyes were wide, wild, and fixed on me. I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the door shut, just as she reached me. Her hand caught the edge of the door, just a split second too late. I didn't think. I acted. I slammed the door with all the force I could muster. A sickening crack rang out. She screamed. The sound was inhuman, high and broken, and I knew I'd crushed her wrist in the door. She stumbled back, cradling her arm, her face contorted in pain. But even then, even as she clutched her shattered hand, she was still smiling. "You can't keep her from me," she hissed, backing away slowly. "This isn't the end." I used to love riding my bike down to the discount store on Maple Avenue. It was a small town, the kind where everyone knew each other's business, and nothing ever really happened. Back then, I was 13, full of imagination and awkward confidence. My name's Callista, and this is the story of the day I stopped feeling safe in my own neighborhood. It started like any other Saturday. My mom had just given me $5 for helping her wash the car, and I was eager to burn it on glitter pens and a new sketch pad. I was obsessed with drawing. Animals, people, cartoons, anything I could think up. That day, I was determined to find a fresh notebook to start a fantasy comic I'd been dreaming about all week. I hopped on my bike, a beat-up purple thing with peeling stickers on the frame, and pedaled toward the store. The sky was bright and the wind was cool. It felt like a good day. The Dollar Depot, as it was called, sat between a laundromat and an empty storefront with boarded windows. Inside, the place was quiet. Only a few shoppers wandered the aisles. The air smelled like stale popcorn and cleaning supplies. I made a beeline for the school supply section, clutching my crumpled $5 bill. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought he was just some guy in a costume. He was tall and lanky, wearing a tattered pirate coat, a huge belt buckle, and a crooked tricorn hat. His dreadlocked wig hung low over his face, and his eyeliner was smudged, but the look was unmistakable. He was dressed like Jack Sparrow. Not a generic pirate, specifically Jack Sparrow. I stared for a second, confused. He was loitering near the freezer section, holding a can of soda, and talking to himself. His voice slurred slightly, and he gestured with exaggerated movements, like he was performing for an invisible crowd. I tried to ignore him and turned into the next aisle. But he followed. "Ahoy, little artist," he said in a low, gravelly voice. "What treasure are ye seeking today?" I didn't respond. I wasn't sure if he was talking to me. Maybe he was just playing around. Some people in town were eccentric. It wasn't unheard of. But then he laughed, a weird, wheezy laugh, and stepped closer. I turned away and walked faster. I found the sketch pads, grabbed the thickest one I could afford, and headed to the checkout. I didn't look back. The cashier, a bored-looking guy with acne and earbuds in, barely looked up as he rang me up. I paid and shoved the sketch pad into my tote bag, relieved to be done. I stepped outside and breathed in the fresh air. That's when I saw it. He was on my bike. The Jack Sparrow guy. Sitting on my purple bike like it belonged to him, one leg lazily resting on the pedal, the other on the ground. "Fine vessel you've got here," he said, grinning at me. "Think I'll take her for a spin." I froze. "That's my bike," I said, and my voice cracked. He tilted his head. "Is it now? Looks like it's got my name on it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a flask, took a long swig, and wiped his mouth with his sleeve. His eyes were glassy. He swayed slightly, even while seated. "Please," I said, stepping forward. "Just get off. I need it to get home." He smiled wider, showing yellowed teeth. "Home's where the heart is, and the road is where the heart wanders." Then he laughed again and started pedaling, slowly at first, then faster. I stood there, stunned, watching him wobble down the street on my bike. Adrenaline kicked in. I ran after him, yelling, "Hey, that's mine." He turned back, still laughing. "Come and get it, lass." I followed him down the sidewalk, past the laundromat and the corner bakery. He veered onto the road, weaving between parked cars and honking traffic. Some drivers rolled down their windows and shouted, but he ignored them. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a kid chasing a drunk pirate down the street. I didn't think. I just ran. He started singing, "Yo-ho-ho" and a bottle of rum. I was crying now, partly from fear, partly from rage. I followed him for what felt like forever. My legs ached, and I couldn't breathe right. That's when he turned onto the highway. I skidded to a stop at the edge of the sidewalk, watching in disbelief as he pedaled my bike onto the actual highway, weaving between lanes like he was invincible. Cars honked. Tires screeched. People shouted. He didn't care. He turned back to face me while still riding, and waved his hat like he was saluting. Then he started pedaling toward me. Straight at me. I screamed. I don't remember making the decision to run. I just did. I bolted across the grass and into the ditch, tripping over rocks and brambles. Behind me, I could hear him shouting something, but the wind and traffic drowned it out. Just as I reached the edge of the ditch, a large semi-truck pulled onto the shoulder. The driver, a gruff-looking man with a baseball cap, jumped out. "You all right, kid?" he asked. I nodded, panting, tears streaming down my cheeks. He looked up the road. "That guy chasing you?" I nodded again. He cursed and pulled out his phone. "Get in the cab. Lock the door. I'm calling the cops." I climbed in, heart racing, and locked the door behind me. I watched through the windshield as the trucker stood on the shoulder, arms crossed, staring the pirate down. But the Jack Sparrow guy didn't stop. He swerved around the truck, gave a mock bow, and disappeared down the road. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. They never found him. I gave a shaky statement. The trucker told them everything. They said they'd keep an eye out, but I could tell they didn't think it was a big deal. "It's probably just some drunk," one officer muttered. I never saw my bike again. For weeks, I had nightmares. Dreams where I was trapped in a store aisle, and he was waiting at the end, hat tilted, eyes glittering. I stopped going to the Dollar Depot. I stopped riding bikes altogether. I was 18 when I started working the night shift at Ridgewell Pharmacy. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid better than the ice cream shop, and I needed money for college. My name's Rena, and this story still makes my hands shake when I think about it. People think nothing ever happens in a 24-hour pharmacy at 3 a.m. But they're wrong. Sometimes that's when the worst things happen. I'd only been working there a month when it started. Ridgewell was a corner store in a quiet suburb. The kind of place where retirees bought their prescriptions and kids came in after school for candy. During the day, it was cheery and bustling. At night, it was a different world. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the silence between customers stretched long enough to make you feel like you were the only person left on Earth. I usually worked with one other person, Griffin, a 22-year-old pharmacy student who mostly stayed in the back. He was quiet, polite, and kept his headphones in most of the time. I didn't mind. It gave me the front of the store to myself, and I liked things quiet. Until the night the man in the hood came in. It was a Thursday, around 2:45 a.m. I remember the time exactly because I just finished stocking the cold medicine and was clock watching until my break. The door's chime rang out, sharp and sudden in the silence. I looked up and saw him. He was tall, over 6 feet, definitely, and wore a dark gray hoodie with the drawstrings pulled tight around his face. His hands were shoved deep into the front pocket. He didn't look at me, just walked through the automatic doors and headed for aisle 4, foot care and first aid. I didn't think much of it at first. People came in at all hours. Some were drunk. Some were tired nurses. Some just wanted to be somewhere that wasn't home. But something about him felt off. He didn't browse. He stood at the end of the aisle, still silent, for a full minute. Then he turned the corner, glanced at me, and walked into the next aisle. I kept my eyes on the security monitor above the register. The screen was grainy, but I could see him. He wasn't looking at the shelves. He was standing between them, facing the camera. Just standing there, watching me. I cleared my throat and pressed the intercom button that rang in the back. Griffin didn't answer. He was probably buried in his textbooks again. The man stepped out from the aisle and started walking toward the register. His hands were still in his hoodie pocket. I forced a smile. "Hey there. Find what you need." He didn't answer. He stopped right in front of the counter. I could see his eyes now. Pale, almost gray. He stared at me like he was trying to memorize my face. "Can I help you?" I asked, more firmly this time. He smiled. Just a tiny twitch of the lips. Then he spoke, low and slow. "You're here every night." I blinked. "Sorry? You work late," he said. "All alone?" My skin prickled. I glanced toward the back door. Still no Griffin. "I'm not alone," I lied. "My manager's in back." He nodded slowly. "I know." And then he turned and walked out. No purchase. No questions. Just gone. I stood there frozen for a long moment, heart pounding. When Griffin finally emerged from the back, I told him what happened. He shrugged. "Probably just some weird guy. Happens all the time." But it didn't feel like just a weird guy. There was something too deliberate about him. Too quiet. Too knowing. The next night, I tried to shake it off. I brought a thermos of tea and my laptop, hoping to distract myself between customers. But at 2:43 a.m., the door chimed again. It was him. Same hoodie. Same staring. He walked down aisle 4, stood there for exactly 1 minute, then turned to watch me through the security monitor. I called Griffin to the front and made a show of talking to him loudly, hoping the man would leave. He did, but not before whispering something as he passed me on the way out. "See you tomorrow." I barely slept that day. My mom noticed my pale face at breakfast and asked if I was sick. I lied and blamed it on school stress. I didn't tell her that I was starting to feel hunted. By the third night, I had pepper spray in my pocket and my phone in my hand every second. I begged Griffin to stay out front with me, but he rolled his eyes. "He's just trying to creep you out. He'll get bored." But he didn't. That night, he didn't come in at 2:45. He came in at 3:26. When the door chimed, I jumped. He walked straight to the counter this time. No aisles. No pretending. He stared at me, and I stared back. "Do you want something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He leaned down, resting his elbows on the counter. "I like watching you." My stomach churned. Griffin finally emerged from the back, saw the man, and stepped up beside me. "Hey, you need to leave." The man didn't look at him. "I'm talking to her," he said. Griffin came around the counter, standing between us. I said leave. For a second, I thought the guy was going to pull something out of his hoodie. But then he smiled again, wider this time. "No need to get upset," he said. "I'll see her again soon." And then he walked out. Griffin locked the door behind him and called the non-emergency police line. An officer came and took a report, but said there wasn't much they could do unless he returned or made a threat. "He's just being creepy," the officer said. "Try not to engage." Try not to engage? I was being stalked, and they wanted me to act like it was nothing. The next night, I called in sick. I stayed home and didn't leave my room. I barely ate. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. But the night after that, I went back. I couldn't afford to miss more hours. And some part of me, maybe the foolish part, hoped it was over. It wasn't. He came back. It was supposed to be a quick stop. Just a trip to Dollar Star for paper towels and lip balm. The kind of mindless errand you don't remember a week later. But that day stuck with me. Not because of what I bought, but because of the man who wouldn't stop watching me. My name is Leah. I was 22 when it happened. I lived in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town, a mix of retirees, college students, and young families. I didn't own a car, so I walked a lot. I liked it. It made me feel connected to the world in a way you don't get behind a windshield. The Dollar Star was a 10-minute walk from my apartment. I went there often enough that the clerks recognized me. It was a little rundown, with flickering lights and a weird smell near the back coolers, but it had everything I needed and prices I could afford. It was a Saturday afternoon, early spring, the kind of day where the air still had a bite to it, but the sun was finally out after a week of gray. I bundled up, grabbed my headphones, and walked to the store with a short list rattling in my mind. When I stepped inside, I noticed it was quieter than usual. Only one register open, and the clerk, Erica, I think, was scrolling on her phone behind the counter. A woman with a toddler was browsing birthday cards. A teenager in pajama pants was lingering by the candy. And then there was him. He stood near the refrigerated section at the back. Middle-aged, wearing a dark hoodie with the sleeves pushed up and a pair of faded blue jeans. His hair was a mess of frizz, and he had a patchy beard that didn't quite connect. What caught my attention, though, was the can of beer in his hand. Open. He was drinking it. Right there in the store. He leaned against the freezer door like he owned the place, sipping from the can and staring at the rows of soda as if making a critical decision. For a moment, I thought maybe he didn't realize where he was. Or maybe he was just drunk and confused. But then he looked at me. Our eyes met for a second too long. I broke it first and ducked into the cleaning aisle, hoping he hadn't noticed the way my shoulders tensed. I grabbed my paper towels and moved quickly, aiming to get in and out without crossing paths. But when I turned down the next aisle, the beauty and hygiene section, he was there, still holding the beer, still staring. He didn't say anything, just stood at the end of the aisle, watching as I picked up a tube of lip balm and pretended not to notice him. I felt my pulse quicken. I didn't want to overreact. Maybe he was just being weird. Maybe he wasn't even looking at me. But when I turned to go, he stepped aside, like he'd been waiting. I clutched my items tightly and walked past him, keeping my eyes ahead. "That's a nice coat," he said as I passed. I ignored him, heart pounding. I went straight to the register and paid, barely glancing at Erica. She didn't seem to notice anything off. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to make a scene. I just wanted to leave. But as I stepped outside, I heard the chime of the door again behind me. He'd followed me out. I walked faster, hoping he was just heading in the same direction. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe this was all just unfortunate coincidence. But when I crossed the street and turned left, away from the main road, he followed. Still drinking the beer. Still silent. I glanced back once. He was about 20 feet behind me, walking slowly, deliberately. Not rushing. Just following. I turned down a different street than usual, hoping to shake him. A longer route, but one with more houses. More cars. I passed a couple walking a dog and considered stopping to ask for help. But what would I say? A man is walking behind me? They'd think I was paranoid. So I kept walking. Faster now. When I glanced back again, he was closer. 15 feet. I took out my phone and held it in my hand. Not calling anyone, just holding it. In case I needed to. In case he ran. But he didn't run. He just kept walking. I reached the intersection near the elementary school and crossed without waiting for the light. A car honked. I didn't care. I was almost home. 3 more blocks. I crossed again, then ducked behind a parked SUV and waited. My heart hammered in my ears. When he turned the corner, I got a good look at him. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't scowling. His face was blank. Only his eyes moved, scanning the sidewalk for me. He paused, then turned his head, and saw me. I ran. No hesitation. I sprinted down the street, cutting through a neighbor's yard, leaping over a flower bed. I could hear him behind me now, his footsteps uneven, the slap of his shoes on the pavement. I didn't look back again. I reached my apartment building and fumbled with the key. My hands were shaking. I dropped it once, cursed, picked it up, and jammed it into the lock. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. Then I ran to the window and peeked through the blinds. He was standing across the street, watching. He took one last sip of his beer, crushed the can, and tossed it into the storm drain. Then he walked away, like nothing had happened. I reported it the next day. The police were polite but dismissive. Did he touch you? No. Did he threaten you? No, but he followed me home. They took a statement and said they'd patrol the area more often. But I could tell they'd already moved on in their heads. He's probably just drunk. Probably didn't even realize what he was doing. But I knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. It happened during a thunderstorm. I was 17, working my first job at a supermarket called Harlan's Market, just outside the edge of town. It was nothing special, rows of off-brand cereal, sticky tile floors, and a break room that smelled like burnt popcorn and mop water. But it paid well for a high school kid, and I liked the people I worked with. Especially Maria. Maria was 19, funny in a dry, sarcastic way, and always wore 2 different socks on purpose. She was studying criminal justice at the community college, and had this energy about her, like nothing could shake her. I used to think of her as invincible. That night changed everything. We were working the closing shift, the 2 of us plus Carter, the assistant manager, who was more interested in texting his girlfriend than doing inventory. It had been a dead evening, just a few customers grabbing last-minute milk or batteries, and the storm was rolling in hard by the time we started locking up. The parking lot was empty, dark except for the flickering streetlights and the occasional flash of lightning that made everything look like a black and white photograph. I was in the break room folding my hoodie when Carter poked his head in. "Hey, one of you want to take the trash out? It's piling up." "I did it last night," Maria said, without looking up from her phone. He turned to me. I sighed. "Yeah, all right." He tossed me the keys to the dumpster padlock. "And take the side door. It's faster." I grabbed my hoodie and tied it around my waist. The wind was already howling outside, but I figured I could handle 5 minutes in the rain. The trash bags were heavy and slick with something I didn't want to think about, and I had to kick open the back door with my foot. The alley behind the store reeked of old oil and wet cardboard. The storm had turned the pavement into a sheet of water, and the thunder was so loud it rattled my teeth. I made it to the dumpster, unlocked the padlock, and tossed the bags in one by one. Lightning cracked overhead, and for a second, everything lit up like daylight. That's when I saw it. Something moved in the bushes. The bushes were along the fence at the far end of the alley, thick and overgrown, the kind that hadn't been trimmed in months. I saw a shape, low to the ground, hunched and still. I told myself it was a raccoon, but then it blinked. 2 glowing yellow eyes. Not glowing like a flashlight, not reflective like a cat's. Glowing like something alive, something wrong. I froze. The eyes didn't move. Then they did. Fast. The creature bolted through the bushes with a sound like tearing fabric and wet leaves. I dropped the keys. I didn't even realize I was backing up until I hit the dumpster. My heart was slamming so hard I thought I might throw up. And then it stopped. Just at the edge of the light. I could see its shape now. It was tall. Too tall. Lanky and twisted like it had too many joints, its limbs bent the wrong way. It had no fur, just pale, stretched skin that looked raw, like it had been peeled. Its face was long and narrow, like a cat's skull, but the mouth was wrong. Too wide. Too many teeth. And it was grinning. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Then the side door slammed open behind me. It was Maria. "Hey, you forget how doors work or something." She stopped mid-sentence. I turned to her, eyes wide. "Don't." But it was too late. The thing moved. Faster than anything I'd ever seen. It crossed the space between us in a blur, like it skipped time. Maria turned to run, but it grabbed her. She screamed once. Just once. The sound was cut off with a wet, horrible snap. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't think. I just ran through the side door and slammed it shut behind me, locking it with shaking hands. I collapsed against the wall, gasping. Carter came around the corner, annoyed. "What the hell is going on?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the door. He frowned and opened it. "Don't." But he was already outside. I crawled to the door and peered out. The alley was empty. No Maria. No creature. Just the dumpster, the overturned trash bags, and a long smear of something dark leading into the bushes. Carter came back in, pale and silent. We locked every door in the building. We called 911. The police came, asked questions, and combed the alley. They found the trash bags. They found the keys I dropped. They didn't find Maria. No blood, no body. Just a few snapped branches and a patch of claw marks on the pavement that looked like they'd been burned in. They questioned us for hours. Suggested maybe Maria had run off. Maybe it was a dog. Maybe we imagined it. But I know what I saw. I'll never forget those eyes. It's been 2 years. I don't work at Harlan's anymore. The building's still there, though. Still flickering. Still empty at night. Maria's listed as a missing person. They put her face on posters. Her mom still leaves flowers at the fence behind the store. We were supposed to be shopping for picture frames. That's all it was. A Sunday afternoon family errand. Something simple. My mom wanted to hang up our updated family portrait, the only one where we were all smiling at the same time, somehow, and she thought framing it together would make it feel more special. I didn't really care, but I went along for the ride. It was me, my mom, my dad, and my younger brother, Zeke, packed into our old Chevy Malibu and headed to the Michaels store downtown. It was one of those chain stores with a massive parking lot, too many carts with wobbly wheels, and music that always played just a little too loud. Inside, the air smelled like cinnamon candles and glue sticks. My dad made a joke about getting lost in the fake floral aisle again, and my mom rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. We were happy, and then we met her, the woman. I didn't catch her name at first. I didn't need it. She had the kind of presence that fills a room as soon as she enters, loud, sharp, and cold as a slap. Tall, with perfectly ironed blonde hair, a designer purse slung over one arm, and a voice that cut across the store like a whistle. She wore sunglasses even indoors, and she had the look of someone who complained to managers for sport. I was browsing the aisle near the frames, comparing 2 sizes, when she stepped in beside me. She didn't say "excuse me," just shoved her cart close enough to knock against my leg. I glanced over. She was glaring at the exact same frame I'd just picked up, a gold-trimmed 16 by 20. Apparently, there were only 2 left. I smiled politely and stepped back. "Go ahead." She didn't respond, just grabbed the frame like she was snatching a prize, then reached for the second one in my hand. "Sorry," I said, holding it tighter. "I'm buying this one." She blinked at me slowly, like I'd just spoken a foreign language. Then her lips curled into a sneer. I saw it first. My mom, who'd been a few feet away looking at poster boards with Zeke, turned toward us. "I don't think so," I said. I was already holding it. The woman scoffed. "And I was about to take it. Don't be rude." I was stunned. I looked at my mom, who was now walking toward us. I half expected her to defuse the situation with a calm voice and a nervous laugh. But instead, the woman kept going. "Of course people like you are pushy," she said with a hard smile. My mom's face shifted. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," the woman said, her voice rising. "Dragging your whole little family in here. Acting like you belong." My dad stepped in. "Ma'am, there's no need for this." She turned on him. "Oh, don't start. I'm not interested in your fake civility. If you people can't afford to shop elsewhere, don't ruin it for the rest of us." I froze. Zeke's hand was tight around my mom's. "What did you just say?" my mom asked, her voice low and tight. "You heard me. This isn't some discount warehouse. It's not for people like you." That's when I slapped her. I didn't mean to. It just happened. A reaction. The sound echoed. Her head snapped to the side. Her sunglasses flew off and clattered onto the tile floor. For a second, everything stopped. She touched her cheek slowly, eyes wide. Then she started screaming. "Assault! She hit me! Someone call the police!" A manager came running. My mom pulled me back, whispering, "Let's go. Let's just go." But the woman wasn't done. Not even close. "We're leaving," my dad said. "We don't want trouble." She laughed. "Oh, you'll get trouble," she said, pulling out her phone. "You'll regret this." We left the store in a daze. The frame forgotten. The portrait forgotten. Everything forgotten except the woman's voice, still ringing in my ears. We thought that was the end. It wasn't. 15 minutes later, as we were loading into the car, she came back. And she brought rage with her. I was buckling Zeke into his booster seat when I heard the tires screech. Her car, an immaculate white Lexus, came roaring across the lot and skidded to a stop behind us, blocking our exit. She jumped out holding something. An iron pipe. She was screaming. "You think you can humiliate me? You think you can lay hands on me and drive away?" My dad stepped in front of us. "Lady, you need to calm down." She swung. The pipe crashed into his shoulder. He stumbled back, groaning in pain. My mom screamed. I scrambled to open the back door and pull Zeke out, but the woman turned on us next. She reached into her purse and pulled out a taser. I didn't even know what was happening until I saw the blue sparks. She lunged at my mom. The taser hit her in the ribs. My mom crumpled. I screamed and slammed the car door shut, locking Zeke inside. The woman turned, her eyes wild. She started smashing the windows. Glass sprayed across the back seat. Zeke was sobbing, huddled under his coat. I grabbed a tire iron from the trunk and shouted, "Hey!" She turned toward me. And then, people were running. Bystanders. A man tackled her from behind. Another woman grabbed her swinging arm and wrestled the taser free. Someone called 911. The police came fast. They arrested her on the spot, hands shaking, face twisted in fury. Even as they put her in the back of the cruiser, she screamed, "You'll regret this. I know people. I'll ruin you." We spent the next week in and out of the police station, giving statements. My dad's shoulder was fractured. My mom had bruised ribs. Zeke wouldn't sleep without the light on. And me? I couldn't stop hearing the crack of the window, the scream, the rage. Turns out, the woman's name was Judith Cartwright. She came from money. Old money. The kind that builds private schools and files lawsuits for fun. Her family sent lawyers. They offered us money. They begged us not to press charges. Said she was under stress. Not herself. Not dangerous. We refused every offer. The community rallied behind us. People who'd been harassed by her before came forward. The court wasn't lenient. She was sentenced to 8 years for assault with a deadly weapon, attempted endangerment of a minor, and destruction of property. Her family disowned her. And us. We framed the photo, hung it in the living room. A reminder,